Hello and welcome to Romantic Romps once again. My name is Sherilyn Muckleroy, and over the past few months I have had the pleasure of interviewing my protagonist from my soon-to-be released book called The Wrong Choice. The protagonist, of course, her name is Riley O'Keefe, who wrote a memoir called The Life of Riley. And the chapters that I have read over these past months, as well as doing the interviews with Riley, have come from her memoir called, of course, The Life of Riley. It is time, however, to end the chapter readings, which this one, chapter 10, will be the last of the chapters that I shall read from The Wrong Choice. To find out what happens to Riley, her husband Sherman, Fitz, and her friend Hazel, you will have to buy the book, but it's not out yet. Hopefully, relatively soon, I shall launch the book. I'll let you know when that happens. I wouldn't let you down. So let's get started with chapter 10, the final chapter that I shall read in the podcast, Romantic Romps. Until we meet again, I bid you good day. Welcome, everyone, to the podcast of Romantic Romps, where guests share their stories of love and how it changed their lives. The Life of Riley, Chapter 10. I never saw my husband's car after I drove onto the main thoroughfare. If he looked for me, I doubt he'd find me at the Midnight Lounge on the far east side of town. I had been on my way to Hazel's house, but slowed down when seeing a ton of cars in the club's parking lot. This was better than venting to a friend. Lots of people meant lots of talking, which meant lots of listening, which meant very little thinking on my part. The instant I walked through the door, I stopped cold. Chaotic noises, sights, and smells bombarded my senses. Thick cigarette smoke penetrated my nose and burned my eyes. Laughter and voices rose above the clanking of martini and whiskey glasses. Waitresses barked drink orders to the bartender, which he mostly ignored. "Oh, Lonesome Me" blared from the jukebox. What a fitting song. "Did I dare stay?" sounded my little angel voice on my right shoulder. I had never been in a place like this on my own. Ladies like me don't go to bars without a chaperone. But then the devil voice on my left shoulder chimed in. What the hell? I need to grow up and show some gumption. I was here, and I'd stay here. I clung to my purse with both hands, almost embedding the handle into the skin of my palms. The only place available to sit was at the bar, so I slid onto the square black leather stool and inched this way and that to get centered. After planting my purse squarely in my lap, I licked my lips and pressed them together to peruse those around me. To my right sat a nicely dressed man in a full three-piece suit. When meeting his eyes, I lowered my head and stared at my purse. Suffering from nerves, I smoothed a wayward strand of hair behind my ear and fingered the collar of my blouse. My limbs refused to relax. If I sat any straighter, my back would snap in two, turning me into a contortionist in that make-believe circus Sherman insinuated was in town. Decked out in casual wear, the man to my left didn't tarry in speaking to me.
"Well, hello there, doll. Can I buy you a drink?"
he offered with an obvious slur from imbibing too much liquor. Barely giving him the time of day, I timidly turned my head to look at him, but not in the eye. Never in the eye. Eye contact meant interest, and I most definitely had no interest in this man. "No, but thank you," I replied with trembling lips. He leaned into my space.
"What'd you say? We're gonna have to speak up to hear over the music."
I cleared my throat and looked directly at the long, straight hair protruding from the tip of his nose like the horn of a unicorn. I said, "No, thank you," then quickly put my focus on watching for the bartender. Though facing forward, I could feel the drunk's beady little eyes roaming over me.
"If you're not here to drink,"
He lightly drew a finger down my arm.
"you must be here in another capacity."
His flirtatious behavior repulsed me and made my stomach turn as I flinched out from under his contact. "Look, I'd appreciate it if you refrain from touching me." By this time, the man on my right had vacated his seat. The drunk leaned back.
"Well, excuse me, Your Highness,"
he mocked.
"Aren't you the hoity-toity one?"
Not wanting to make a scene, I slipped off my stool and occupied the open one to my right, and just in time, another woman took my previous seat. Good. Let her deal with that jerk. Now, back to the business of getting a drink. Every time the bartender came within reach of me, I peeled my fingers from the purse handle and raised my hand to put in my order. But he kept passing by without so much as an acknowledgement. Men who came up to the bar and yelled their drink order received service almost immediately. Was that the method by which a person got a drink here? "Whiskey!" I shouted when the bartender passed by again. "Neat!" I added, whatever that meant. I heard someone shout it over the counter and decided if that guy liked it, it was good enough for me. When the bartender sloshed a glass of amber liquid in front of me, I nearly fainted. It had no ice or no ginger ale in it. Thoughts of Shotzi night resurfaced, making me want to gag.
"Charlie!"
A deep, booming voice called over my shoulder. The bartender stopped moving and paid close attention to the voice.
"I think the lady would much prefer a glass of champagne."
"Right away, Mr. Kingston,"
the bartender replied with all due respect. Before I could turn around, Fitz tapped the shoulder of a different man sitting to my right. The seated man nodded back at the gesture and vacated his stool, whereby Fitz sat down. Fitz placed his half-empty drink on the counter and turned to face me. With my mouth agape and the dazed look on my face, he saw how shocked I was at seeing him.
"What brings a girl like you to a place like this?"
he asked with a tone filled with sarcastic humor. Now, this kind of man engaging in this kind of wordplay was what the doctor ordered. Wit and fortitude distracted me from the painful burden of my father's death. "I could ask the same of you." The bartender slapped a paper napkin on the counter, placed a coupe glass of the sparkling wine on top of it, and pushed both toward me. Fitz took possession of my unwanted whiskey and twirled the contents, focusing on the liquor as it coated the interior of the glass.
"I've been coming here for years. What about you? I've never seen you in here before tonight."
He glanced around the room.
"I don't see Sherman. Please, tell me you're not here alone."
At the statement, I bit my lip in thoughtful contemplation of the full champagne glass. I watched the bubbles race up from the bottom to celebrate their journey when making it to the top. I threw my shoulders back and raised my chin high for some much-needed intestinal fortitude. To help it along, I took a deep sip from the sparkling wine. "I see a lot of women here alone." I boosted the strength of my tone. That tells me it's not unusual for a woman to come to a bar by herself. Fitz lowered his head and grinned.
Most of these ladies you see here are,
He cleared his throat.
working women.
Vindication was mine. See? You just made my point, Fitz, I announced. Be they secretaries or housewives, they work hard at the office or in their home and need a place to let their hair down. A drink can be a relaxing activity to take the edge off their day. I raised my glass and nodded my head. I'm no different. Justified in my reason about being there without a man on my arm, I took a validating sip. Fitz's grin grew larger. I didn't know why, and I didn't care. Drinking mattered, and I got after it. Lightly holding the glass of whiskey between his index finger and thumb, he proposed a toast.
You never got to drink your glass of champagne before Sherman whisked you away at our New Year's Eve party. So?
He raised his glass and waited for me to pick mine up. It took a moment, but I did.
Here's to 1958,
he announced so I could hear over the crowd.
May it be a year to remember.
Then he winked at me.
And maybe parts of it to forget.
I did not understand what he meant again. I clinked his glass and emptied the contents of mine. He ordered me another. 3 glasses of champagne at the bar with Fitz eased my mind. Having him by my side to protect me from assholes like the lascivious lech who hit on me earlier made me fearless. With my hand now in his, Fitz helped me off the stool and maneuvered me around the crowded floor to a table filled with people. He pulled out an empty chair and waited until I sat down to scoot it in. He knew these men and women and made the introductions. Not a single name stuck in my memory. Everyone sitting at the table had something funny to say, and I almost peed myself when laughing at their jokes and stories. No one ever saw the bottom of their glass either. Fitz made sure of that. Martinis and champagne were aplenty for the women, and the men drank whiskey of the neat order. All too soon the bartender yelled, "Last call!" Downing one more champagne ensured my inability to drive home. Shit! I lived on the other side of town. I'd end up in the pokey even before getting out of the parking lot. A taxicab was the only option left in getting back to my home, sweet home. As I reached into my purse, Fitz put his hand over mine.
Forget your car keys, my dear Riley. You can't drive in your condition.
I'm not going to, I slurred as I removed his hand from mine with 2 fingers as if picking a rotten peach from the fruit bowl. I removed everything in my purse to locate my wallet where I kept the number of a taxi company in case Bluebell broke down. I'm driving a taxi home, I said. His grin grew larger.
You're not driving anywhere.
My head snapped up and I wagged my finger at him. You're not the boss of me, Mr. Fitz. In my drunken state, my bravado rose. But, I giggled, you are a goofball. Look. I poked him in the arm. This is how it works. The driver's driving the cab. I'm just driving in it. See? Before putting my attention back on my purse to find the wallet I had already removed and placed other items on top of, I witnessed Fitz's enjoyment. Was he mocking me? If so, he'd better be ready for a slug upside the head. Fitz was no match for me. As a woman, I knew how to fight and win. He placed both hands over mine.
Riley.
He tried to gain my attention.
I'll take you home.
I may have been 3 sheets to the wind, but I knew that was not a good idea. "Oh, no, you won't," I protested, lifting my finger that waved around in front of my face due to impaired faculties. When doing so, I frowned with perplexity and focused on this digit as if it belonged to someone else. To stop its movement, I grabbed it with my other hand, then passed a hefty burp from deep within the bowels of my stomach. I giggled at how loud it came out. "Excuse me." The fact I didn't even try to suppress the manly-sounding belch made it funnier still. I put on a serious face and placed my hand on my hip to show determination. My fingers kept slipping down as if I had spilled oil on my capri pants. Instead, I shook my head and triggered my index finger once again. My hand flew across my body from one shoulder to the other and back again. "Sherman wouldn't like me in your car," I warned, taking a deep breath. About to finish the sentence, my thought process crossed wires. With the tip of my finger poking on my temple, I narrowed my eyes and turned up one side of my mouth. What was your question?" I dislodged my finger and cocked my head. "Wait, was there a question?" I looked up as if the answer hovered in the thickness of horizontal, vaporous smoke stretched out like low-level stratus clouds. "Oh, yeah," I came out of my fog. No. You can't take me to that place I live in. My Sherman will knock your block off, and that would be bad. No." I shook my head back and forth. "Mistake. That would be very, very bad." I nodded my head up and down. Again a mistake. "I'm driving me a taxi home, but," I turned my now empty purse upside down, "I cannot find that thingy I put my license in."
Your wallet?
His grin stretched from ear to ear. Everyone at the table roared at the comedic entertainment. They laughed, and I joined in, having no clue to what was so funny. Fitz relieved me of my purse and placed the items back in it, including the elusive wallet.
If you won't let me take you to your house, I'm taking you to mine. I'll have Coral call your husband and tell him you're spending the night with us. Then I'll take you back tomorrow morning. How does that sound?"
The two images of Fitz needed to stop moving. As I weaved and bobbed in my chair, I decided he had the right idea. "Yeah, okay," I furrowed my brows. "Why didn't you say that before?" Helping me up, he swooped me up and carried me to his car. When arriving at the MGA Roadster, I scowled. "Fitz, you putz around in that stupid little beastie thing with no door handles. You need to return it. It's defective." What's he grinning at, I wondered. He folded me into the passenger seat and went round to slip into his. He watched as I arched my back to find a comfortable position. The show got better when thrusting my bust forward and moving my hips back and forth. Once my butt found its place, I heaved a deep sigh and closed my eyes. In my intoxicated state, it startled me when Fitz leaned over and lightly kissed me. I moved to resist, which meant raising my chest in protest, but then he quelled my fear.
"Riley."
He spoke low and slow as he considered my movement and offering and took advantage of the situation by wrapping his hand over the presented gift.
"Relax. You are in good hands. Very good hands."
He placed feather kisses on my ear and followed the contour of my jawline before landing once again on my lips. All the while he did wonders in awakening what was under my bra.
You are exquisite.
He drew my earlobe into his mouth, then released it.
And I can't keep my hands to myself. You were born to be touched, and I was born to oblige.
I pushed him back and focused on his face as best I could. Hey, you can't kiss me, I sputtered in the best angry tone I could muster. My lips belong to Sherman, and only he can put his on them. You take that kiss back.
You are so right, Riley.
A sly grin crossed his face.
I overstepped. Let me take it back.
My head bobbled at his apology. And do it now, I garbled. In taking the kiss back, he kissed me again, deeper and more exploratory. It left me spinning like a tornado and caused an unexpected excitement in the way he manipulated my tongue. The way he tickled my lips made me coo with pleasure. I felt my heart pick up its speed and the skin on my body prickle with bumps as the blood heated in its flow to my down under.
There,
he whispered in my ear, and over the staccato breaths I heaved from the heady kiss.
I took it back. Are we all square now?
With my eyes still closed, my head nodded in agreement. Mm-hmm. All square now, I mumbled. Fitz carried me through his front door and took me straight to the guest bedroom where he lay me on the bed, shoes and all. I had my wits about me, but barely. He must have thought I was out cold because his fingertip glided down my cheek and stopped at the tip of my chin. I felt the warmth of his breath as he neared my mouth. Was he going to kiss me? Oh, goody, goody. Come on, Fitzy boy. Lay one on me. I'm ready for you. I won't tell Sherman if you won't, I thought.
Son of a bitch,
he growled.
I want you so bad, but not like this.
He kissed my forehead and disappeared from the room to let me sleep it off. In my state of impairment, I would have let him do anything he wanted to me because this was a dream, right? And dreams don't count for shit, now do they? Oh, Fitz, don't leave.